Thanks, Doug. Good morning, welcome. I'm Tom Buckley, as Doug said, farm manager here at our farm. I'm going to cover the season to date information, and you'll find that page 9 to 23 in your booklets. It's also available on our farm website. Hope you've all been receiving the weekly updates that Doug sends out over calving to keep you up to date with how we're tracking through the season. They'll continue as we go along. In terms of production in general, calving has gone pretty well, with 97% of cows calved now and into the milking herd. Though we were a week late starting and milking less cows than last year, we finally caught up at the start of August. July, as I'm sure you all found out, was a wetter than average month. Rainfall has already been far greater than last season, with us receiving 492 mils so far this season compared to last year's 303. We've already received 55% of last year's rainfall already this season. Although it has felt like a milder winter, it has on average been 0.7 of a degree colder than last season. So that's obviously affected growth, along with how wet it's been. With the level of rainfall received along with a reasonably condensed calving spread, it didn't help us get off to a good start, primarily due to poor utilisation of the grass, but also the ability to allocate other feeds evenly to all cows, such as pumpkin or using trailers taken out to the paddock. July really illustrates the struggles we encountered on the grass-based system from the continual rain and shows the vulnerability of our existing system. We started calving a week late, as I said, and ended up sending milk 10 days later than last year, ending July 10% behind. However, heading into August, we were lucky with the weather and a 2-week dry spell, which meant that utilisation improved from a sometimes poor 75% experienced in July to a more pleasing 85 to 90%. This helped to improve intakes while not speeding up our round. The key to our successful spring was sticking to the spring rotation planner and not getting too excited when the sun came out in August, but gradually increasing areas from 60 square metres to the current 120 square metres. Unfortunately, June we lost a further 5 hectares of lease land, which meant we had to reduce our cow numbers yet again. So the initial target of 186,000 kilograms of milk solids has now been altered to 178, still basing this on 417 kilos a cow for the season. When we lost the area, we culled some eczema cows that we felt that would not make it through calving, a couple of empties and some poorer performers from the previous season. Although we are slightly behind our model targets, it is promising to see how well the cows are currently milking compared to last season. In August last year, we were on average doing 1.79 kilos per cow. Now we're doing just under 2 kilos. On a weekly basis, the cows have already outperformed the peak production of last year, so we're excited to see what the next month brings as we're able to increase feed intakes. From our recent herd tests, it's pleasing to see first calvers are doing exceptionally well at 1.7 kilos a cow compared to last year's 1.2, and the second calvers 2 kilos versus 1.6. I think this is a credit to having them grazed off site and being able to grow them to a better size coming into their first calving. We remain 2% up for the season, which is great considering we're milking 30 less cows off less area. Animal health. Milk fever has been a big issue this year compared to last, especially during early August. Could partly put this down to carryover effects of eczema, but also poor weather. We followed our plan from Bill from Cambridge Vets, 100 grams of mag oxide for the springers and to the milkers. In early August we offered 100 grams of gypsum to the springers and also dusted 250 to 300 grams of lime flour to the milkers and colostrum cows through into early September. This seemed to bring things back under control. Mastitis has also been a bit more prevalent this year, and we put this down to both the weather during July but also not blanket dry cowing at the end of the last season, coupled with the fact that we didn't herd test in the latter end of last season. The good news story certainly has been the improvement in lame cow numbers, with only 6 versus 14 last year. Those that have been found have been dealt with promptly and safely using our new Wrangler crush and have gone back into the herd quickly. A lot more preventative trimming has also occurred and will continue to occur over the next few months as time allows. The herd has continued to be condition scored by Wade Bell from Dairy NZ and myself at the end of each month. As you will see on page 14, even though we didn't quite reach the target of body condition 5 by calving, body condition has still been maintained at adequate levels through calving, bottoming out just above 4 at the end of August. Mating will start at the end of this month, and numbers are looking good so far as we monitor pre-mating heats. This year we will be using LIC's Y-weight program and LIC's bulls, but also non-cyclers will be treated early with seeders, which will provide the best return on investment rather than waiting until week 3 to start a seeder program. LIC's got a couple of reps here, so if you want to talk to them after today, they're more than happy to talk to you about your mating plans. Our mating plan is to try and further tighten our calving up next spring so as to increase days in milk, but also increase days prior to planned start of mating, so as to offer more time for cows to naturally prepare for next mating period and reduce the need for intervention. This obviously will incur some feed costs next calving, as demands during July will be greater, but the modelling that Doug and I have done shows that with the correct amount and type of feed we will be better off. The modelling can be seen on page 15, comparing the Y-weight program, business as usual, and the Y-weight with wintering late calvers off farm. Pasture growth, we were able to come into the season with greater covers than last season, this mainly due to not being able to graze new grasses and annuals due to pulling and also nitrate levels. As I mentioned earlier, the focus over the past 12 weeks has been to follow the spring rotation planner and stick with the typical Waikato balance date of the 15th September. We're currently on a 31-day round, or 4.7 hectares per day, with the aim to get out to 24 days or 6.2 hectares a day over the next 10 days as we begin our cropping program and taking out a bit of silage as well. We have had numerous issues with our pasture meter, but with regular visual checks, at least every second day through spring, it's been easy to make a plan and alter grazing where necessary. And credit to my team, Louis and Lani, in working with me at hitting residuals and limiting pugging damage where possible. The graph on page 17 shows the pasture cover graph and us bottoming out at cover of 1925. We could have gone a little lower, but we decided that it was more beneficial to pasture condition and future growth to ease the pressure by purchasing an additional 9 tonne of baleage to get us through the second half of August. This not only protected pasture, but also maintained production levels. Pasture growth was slightly higher than budgeted in June, but July and August saw us drop behind as pre-graze levels dropped and the round had to be sped up to compensate. Still sticking to the spring rotation planner. The slower growth rates is likely to be due to the saturation levels of the soils carried over from the heavy rains during July. We can now see that the pasture is really starting to take off, and we'll have an updated pasture wedge on Thursday. But last week we were at 2188 average pasture cover, so a confident position to be in 2 weeks out from mating. The pasture wedges on page 19 shows the importance of monitoring pasture levels and addressing any deficits. We have strategically used ProGib and Sustain ammo and Quick Start through July and August, and now we're using Sustain at a lighter rate where necessary. Thanks to Mark T from Balance for your advice along the way and helping manipulate the wedge. Supplements. As expected, supplement use through the early part of the season has been quite high due to the relatively compact start, but also poor utilisation of pasture. June we saw good growth rates, so we were able to feed less pasture silage and PK, but used more maize as wastage was able to be kept to a minimum due to the drier weather. July saw us use more pasture silage than planned, as it was hard to feed the PK in trailers and offer equally to large mobs of cows. However, as intakes fell due to poor utilisation, we had to suffer some pasture damage due to the trailers in the paddocks and towing the trailers in and out of the paddock, which was a challenge on some occasions, as I'm sure you've all experienced with the wet weather. August, we saw a break in the rain and utilisation improved, so we made the decision to take the pressure off the pasture by buying the baleage I spoke of earlier to accompany the 3 to 4 kilos of palm kernel per cow per day. Having the appropriate feed sources on hand and the means of feeding them has been a significant limitation to our system, which impacted production in July and August. However, the improvement of weather in August allowed us to regain some of that lost ground, and we're now, as I said, ahead of last season. Nitrogen use has been higher than planned so far this season, with complete round of phased N in July, followed by a round of sustain ammo in August, and now we've started using a round of sustain for September. We're currently used up 80 kilos a hectare of nitrogen out of the 150 kilos in our budget, but feel by doing nothing we would have not the grass wedge available that we do now, and also the new grasses that have gone in over the autumn still need to be fed to get off to a good start. That's about it all from me. Thank you for listening. Any questions?